Hey there, so I don't know if you can tell, but we just finished filming 3 new courses in 3 weeks. And hopefully you cannot tell from the pristine appearance of what is going on behind me, all of the other things that are going on in the rest of the space. And so I'm gonna take you on a little bit of a behind the scenes, and we're gonna clean up the studio today. Hey there, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Felicia from SweetGeorgia, and this is Taking Back Friday. This is a space where we come every Friday and we talk about knitting and spinning and weaving and dyeing. And I have been talking a ton about spinning and dyeing and yarn and knitting for the past several weeks, because we've been filming here at least 2 or 3 times a week, every week for the past 3 weeks. And then this past week we did a live office hours. So it's just been a very busy and hectic time. We've been teaching some classes about spinning with color, spinning intentional color. I've been teaching a course about knitting with hand-dyed yarns, and so that is coming out. And I finished a course about Handwoven Colour, or working with the Houndstooth pattern. And so you can't really tell, but all of my samples and everything, I talk about them here at the table, and then in order for us to move to the next shot, I just basically put everything on the floor behind me. So I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. So first off, here is a situation with my tabletop. So right now we have a whole bunch of dyes here. These are all natural dyes that are from Botanical Colors. And so we got a bunch of things. We got some alum here. We have, this is Kutch. I have a bunch of other things here. Some lac, iron powder for changing how different colors look. These are all natural dyes from Botanical Colors, and we're going to be hosting a natural dye class in the School of SweetGeorgia very shortly, probably in the coming months. And so we're going to be working with a natural dye instructor locally here in town in Vancouver, Caitlin French, and so she's going to be helping to produce that content. So that's why all of these things are out, because Caitlin just came by. She came by yesterday, the day before, to come and pick up some of these things so that she can go and make some samples, natural dyed samples. So there's more stuff in the box here. This is all actually stuff for indigo. So later on this year, we're going to do some indigo as well in the school. So that is all coming soon. You can see here, this is kind of, we have been really super organized lately. We've been doing these things. These are call sheets. So my call sheet, listing out all of the different things that I need to film and when. So back here, behind my desk, these are all the samples that I finished working with, that they all need to be recategorized and classified again so that I know I can find the samples when I need to find them. So you can see here, there's fractal dyed samples. Those are combination drafted. That's the colorway that these were spun from. And then we have here, we have some Tussa silk, Bombyx silk, so pretty, and more chain plied samples, more swatches, more handspun yarn. There's so many handspun skeins. And then we have a lot of the projects and the samples. All of these things need to get sorted. And then those are just the fiber ones. These are the yarn swatches. These are the yarns that we were talking about in the Knitting with Hand-Dyed Color class. Low water immersion yarns, layered yarns, all sorts of yarns in here, and about 1 million swatches. There's so many swatches. These are all swatches. There's Kool-Aid dyed yarn. And you can see here, this is my box of tools that I use with my drum carder. So as part of one of the spinning classes, we did some drum carding. Come and show you my drum carder here. So we had a situation with the drum carder. So you can see here, this is my beloved electric drum carder. This is a Patrick Green drum carder, but I brought it to the studio to film that drum carding section for the spinning class. And as soon as I plugged it in and turned it on, the bands broke off. So these are the bands that originally came with the drum carder, and they just immediately snapped. They're just so brittle. This one is supposed to go here, but it was so brittle, it just immediately snapped off. So luckily, there is someone who is making these drum carders again. It's called Brother Drum Carder. And so I guess they purchased all the plans to Patrick Green's drum carder. So they're continuing to make these drum carders. So they're still available. But I love this drum carder. You can see it's a little bit messy. It still needs to be cleaned from the last time that I used it. And so obviously I couldn't use this electric drum carder in the class because the bands were all broken. So I pulled out this one that we have in our studio, which is the Ashford drum carder. So I was using this one. This one looks like it's completely brand new. It was pristine and so clean. The last person who used it was Charlotte, and I guess she cleaned it like perfectly. I thought it was brand new. And so I had to do a really good job and clean this off as well to make sure that it was nice and pretty for the next person who's going to use this drum carder. These plastic containers, I was going to sort out all of the different swatches and samples and try to put them into the bins in a more organized way. All of these fibers here, these were all decorating the set as I was doing my spinning class, but you can see this beautiful fiber. This is one of the colorways that I love. It's called Throwback. We made this on fiber. And I stripped it. I broke it up into pieces for the class. And so now I'm going to take this home and actually spin it. Yeah, so that one's coming home with me. And then here, to organize this, these are all Rolags that have come from Debbie Held, and she's out in Georgia. And so she mailed these to me, and I photographed them for our upcoming blending board class. And so I have to sort those and package them nicely and then send them back to her, unless she'll let me spin them. And yeah, I'm trying to put those samples. These are all the hand-woven samples, trying to put them in bins and get them sorted and organized. I'm going to label everything. You can see here we made some palettes in the upcoming Knitting with Hand-Dyed Color class. And so these are some color palettes that we put together from photographs. This rack, this Ivar, fits 2 of these rigid heddle looms perfectly. So there's a 10-inch version and the 15-inch version, or the wider version, I think is 15 inches. And so these 2 fit perfectly side by side on one shelf. And then again, my rolling rack with my random weaving things that I need. And then finally, I have been trying to work on this project for some time, but there's just no time. And so I've decided that I did originally some plain weave down here, and then this is some twill up here. And I think I actually prefer the twill over the plain weave, but you can let me know what you think. I need to change colors. It's not going to be purple for sure. Maybe like a dark brown or something. So I want to get that, so I can get that off the loom. So as you can see, I have quite a bit of tidying up to do. Yeah, I'm gonna work on this room and get this all tidied up and hopefully make it nice and presentable for next week. Great, so it's been a couple of days. It's taken me a couple of days to finally sort out and organize all the stuff here in the studio. And it's all nicely tidy now. All of the samples are in the right places. All the swatches have been collected together in the lesson order. So now I know where everything is. I'm gonna tag and label everything that hasn't been tagged and labeled because I can no longer rely on my memory for most things anymore. So I have to keep notes of everything everywhere. The trouble is sometimes forgetting where I put my notes, and that's a bit of an issue too right now. But I wanted to share with you the 3 classes that we worked on over these past several weeks. We filmed 3 classes in 3 weeks, and the 3 classes that we filmed, one of them is to do with spinning color. So spinning intentional color, you know, taking a hand-painted braid or a chunk of fiber or a carded bed, and how would we go about spinning those, and what happens to color once we've spun it into yarn. So this is a big class. I have just now transferred 1.5 terabytes worth of 4K video to Leah, and she's chopping it all up and putting it back together in the proper order. So that's happening right now, the spinning intentional color class. In wrapping up that class and finishing off the loose ends for that class, I actually took some of the fiber that I showed in that class and I finished spinning it up. Very, very excited about this. This fiber had been sitting in my stash for years and years, and I was just hoarding this fiber because the dyer no longer dyes fiber anymore. And so this is from Pigeon Roof Knits, and I finally broke into this stash. This colorway is called Fairy Tale, and spun it up into a 2-ply yarn. So you can see some of it is a little bit more rusty red, some of it's got a little bit of purple in it. But my plan for this is to take these 2 balls of 2-ply handspun yarn, and I'm going to wind them together into a warp to make another handspun scarf. Right now I have leftover warp on my loom at home, and I can just tie it on really quickly, just knock this out, and I've been waiting a long time to see this scarf come together. The colors in this particular fiber, they were dyed, and there's chunks of color about this long. And so what I did was I didn't strip this fiber at all. I wanted to preserve as much of the length of those colors as possible. And so hopefully that's why you can see like a big long streak of purple in here. Hopefully that big long streak of purple will appear in the warp of this handspun scarf when I finally put it together. See big long streaks of purple. That's what I'm hoping. So we'll see how this works up into hand-spun, hand-woven cloth. This is something that I've been working on very, very, very slowly, is taking a lot of my hand-spun yarn and finally weaving it up to see what happens to it. And so, you know, playing with different techniques, like if it's fractal spun, how is it going to present in hand-woven cloth? If it's, you know, combination spun, how is it going to present? What if we use it in the warp? What if we use it in the weft? So this is all stuff that will become future projects as we go along. So yeah, the spinning intentional color class, someday all of those samples will become hand-woven, hand-spun cloth class at some point in time. The other class that I recorded is called Knitting with Hand-Dyed Color. And so this is something that has been requested for a long time now. People will ask me over and over again about how do we knit with hand-dyed yarn, hand-painted yarn, and I feel like I talk about it a lot all the time, but I think that now to put it into a place where I've consolidated a lot of that information together in one encapsulated class, I think is a good idea. In a few years ago, we made this course called Color Play, and that was all about sort of mixing and combining different colors together to make, like, what if you wanted to make a 2-color shawl or a 3-color shawl? How do you pick colors to go together? And so that content was only like 26 minutes total for the whole workshop. And so what I've done is taken some of that information and expanded on it more, brought in more examples, more samples, more different ways that you can use different colors to mix them together. And hopefully it's just a much more comprehensive class about knitting with hand-dyed color. And finally, I wanted to share with you this one that I have been working on for so long. I can't believe it's taken so long, but it's just taken probably more than 6 months of weaving and making and writing to make this project. But it is the Houndstooth episode 5 of Handwoven Colour. If you're not familiar with this particular series that I've been making on the School of Sweet Georgia, Handwoven Colour is about taking hand-dyed color, about taking color and exploring different ways of using it in hand-woven cloth. And taking something classic, you know, like the houndstooth motif, and then transitioning that and transforming that into something a little bit more, a little bit different ways that you can weave this particular cloth. That's what we're tackling in this episode of Handwoven Colour. So houndstooth is not a very complicated weave structure. It's not a complicated thing to weave. It's really about working with a simple weave structure and then playing with colors. And so the reason why I think it took so long to make this particular class is because I wove 5 different scarves for it, and looking at how do you weave houndstooth from everything from a rigid heddle loom, just 2 shafts on a rigid heddle loom, to weaving houndstooth on a 4-shaft loom, to then weaving houndstooth on an 8-shaft loom. And so taking this one little classic motif and then expanding it and then using different colors with it. And so, you know, I wove this tiny little swatch. This one came off of the rigid heddle loom, and oh, it is so squishy and warm and comfortable. It's very woolly. This yarn that we used for this little sample is actually the Harrisville Highland, and it's a yarn, it's a weaving yarn. It can be used for knitting. It comes on cones. It's a bit of a thicker yarn, and it's not super washed. So when you weave this and then you wash it, it just all comes together it feels like it's solid. It feels like it's just all melded together, and that's such a cool thing that happens when you weave with this woolly yarn. It's cool. So in any case, this was the sample for weaving Houndstooth on a rigid heddle loom. Just 2 colors, plain weave, so easy. And then I talk about weaving Houndstooth on a 4-shaft loom. And so you guys will no doubt have seen this scarf. This was in our holiday collection. So this one I called the triple check scarf, and this is a 4-shaft Houndstooth. And then we expanded on that pattern and moved towards making these buffalo plaids. So this buffalo check is also kind of an extension of that previous scarf. This is also woven on the same 4-shaft loom. And I just tied on to the previous project and I just kept going. So moving from 4 shafts to 8 shafts, I also did an 8-shaft version of the Houndstooth. And I wove this on the Louette spring loom that I have at home. It's an 8-shaft loom. It's a countermarche loom. The one I'm sitting here in front of, this is a counterbalance loom. The one at home is a countermarche loom. So you can see, hopefully you can see this very classic looking Houndstooth motif. It's really a slinky and drapey scarf when you get down to this. This was woven with the mohair silk sock that we make. And I'll show you up close. So I had seen this particular weaving draft used in like a shawl or a blanket before, and it was so pretty. So I was just dying to make this myself. And so this is, 2 different colors of mohair silk sock. And after I finished this project, this very, very classic 8-shaft project, I decided to put on one more scarf. And this is the one that I'm most excited about. And so this one is the same pattern as the previous one, except using 2 sock blanks, or actually no, it's the double sock blank. Using that double sock blank that I wound up in one of the previous episodes, taking that double sock blank, unraveling the 2 strands, and then winding those each to a separate hank and then separate balls, and then using one of the balls to then wind a warp, and then one of the balls to use as weft. And so this is the mashup of how that all looks once it's together. So you can see this kind of gradient effect. Basically, there is a gradient in the warp, and then there's also a gradient happening in the weft. I love how you can see the Houndstooth motif happening here and how it kind of like goes in and out of visibility, because when the orange and the blue cross over here, then you're not seeing so much of that Houndstooth motif, that look. Not very, very strong. So I think it's really neat just to see how the motif goes in and out depending on which colors are overlapping at which point in time. So that is the final project in that Handwoven Colour episode. So that is basically what we've been working on. Now that the space is all tidied up and all of my footage is filmed and ready and been delivered to Leah to edit it, tomorrow, actually, Rachel Smith, her Welford Pearls, she's going to be coming into the studio and we are going to be filming an epic course for her. We are going to be filming spinning with breed-specific wools. And so she goes through all of the nitty-gritty details about spinning with all of these different sheep breeds. And so very, very excited to do that over the next couple of days. And then later on in the month, we're going to be having natural dye classes that we're going to be filming together here with Caitlin French. And we're also going to be filming a wet felting class with Charlotte from our studio here. And she's going to be taking fibre that she's blended on a blending board and then creating felt out of that for wet felted projects. And so that is all coming up very, very soon. And then there's going to be more stuff. And so part of the reason why I was in a bit of a compressed time schedule to just try to get all of my filming done a little bit sooner is so that I could make space and make way for all of these instructors who are going to be coming through the studio very shortly to film their content. Very excited about bringing all of this to you. So if you have ever been interested or intrigued by what we're doing at the school, I really, really encourage you to come and check us out and see what we're doing. We actually have an option where you can sign up for just $1 to see what's inside the school for 2 weeks. So you get a 14-day trial, just $1 trial, and then you get to see all of the courses, you get to see what the forums are about, you get to kind of poke around and see what people are posting, what people are making. We would love to have you come and join this fabulous and warm and amazing community. It's been a really amazing thing to be building. I'm just so grateful every time I come to the studio and I'm able to work in this space and make things and show you what we're making. It's been a really amazing adventure. So yeah, if you are at all curious about learning how to weave or learning how to combine colors or learning how to knit with color or learning how to spin, we really encourage you to come and join us in the community and see what we're all about, and we can spend some time learning the fiber arts together. So that is it for this week. I'm going to enjoy this newly cleaned studio for a little bit until we all blow it up tomorrow. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you watching these videos. I really appreciate you guys leaving comments for me. I read every single comment. I may not be able to reply to every single one, but I do read every single comment. So thank you so much for being here and being part of all of this. If you like these videos, please do hit the like button. And if you would like to see more content like this, please do hit subscribe, and then you'll hear about whatever we're doing at Sweet Georgia and the School of Sweet Georgia and everything. So that is it for this week. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you in the next one. All right, bye for now.